whichever part of the world you are joined today. Welcome to another exciting meeting at ITU Toastmasters. I'm sure you will enjoy this session. Today we have a great meeting ahead and we have a tight agenda. With that note, I'll pass the control to the presiding officer today, Toastmaster Nishit.
Thank you, Toastmaster Raghu. Good evening and good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's meeting. My name is Nishit, and I currently serve as the president of this club. So let me start first by stating Toastmasters' mission. Toastmasters International is a nonprofit organization that teaches public speaking and leadership skills through the worldwide network of clubs. Headquartered in Englewood, Colorado, the organization's membership exceeds 300,000 in more than 15,800 clubs in over 149 countries. Since 1924, Toastmasters International has helped people from diverse backgrounds become more efficient and more confident speakers, communicators, and leaders. So before we start today's meeting, I'd like to request that everyone put their mobile devices on silent so we can avoid any of the distractions when the members are speaking. With that, I'd like to introduce our Toastmaster of the day. That would be our Toastmaster, one second, Abhijit Joshi. Abhijit, I don't have a formal introduction for him, but I've known him since I started at Toastmaster, and he's been amazing. He's been a great mentor to me. I've learned a lot from him, and I'm honored to have him serve as the Toastmaster of the day today. So here's to you, Abhijit.
Thank you so much, Nishit. Today we have a packed agenda. Our today's theme is acing a job interview. Whenever I thought about the job interview, it gave me goosebumps. I always wanted to be a program manager, but I have never cleared the phone interview. 3 years ago, I joined Toastmasters. After working continuously for 2 years, because this is a safe place where you can fail. But there will be people still clapping and cheering you. Their feedback helped me. Declan would always say, hey, you would be a great program manager. And finally, 6 months ago, I got an opportunity. There was an opening for a program manager. And I had put in 2.5 years of work in Toastmasters. And this time, my confidence was up. And each and every interview went as smoothly as I could hardly imagine. And I got that job. It was only because of the preparation I put in. So take advantage of this place where you can practice, and hone your skills. Before we get started, let me introduce our ITU Marketing Director, Eric Palma. Eric, can you share a few words from your side, please?
Thank you so much, Abhijit. We are very happy and we're very excited to have this opportunity to be with you, sharing all your knowledge and your experiences with students that are in the same process. They are looking for opportunities. They are having their skills upgrade with an exceptional education, a master's degree, and also to perform at the highest level, they need to ace this interview. So we really appreciate your time and the opportunity to share your experience with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. Our Toastmasters meetings are in 3 sections. In first section, we have prepared speeches. In second section, we have impromptu speaking, where you are asked a question and you have to speak for at least a minute. In the third section, you get feedback on how you did on your speeches or how you did on your timing and also on your grammar. Let's get the party started. Let me introduce our role bearers for today. Our timer for today is Rupa. Rupa, can you introduce your role, please? Rupa, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Toastmaster Abhijit. So I'll be the timer for today. And I will time, as a timer, I will time all the table topics. So table topics would be 2 minutes. 1 minute, I'll raise a green card at 1.5 yellow, and 2 minutes, I'll raise a red card. I will also time the speeches, which is 5 to 7 minutes. At 5 minutes, I'll raise a green card, 6 minutes yellow, and 7 minutes red card. And I would also time the keynote. So the keynote speech is for 10 to 15 minutes. 10 minutes is green, 12 minutes yellow, and 15 minutes red. And I will time the evaluations as well, which is 2 to 3 minutes. 2 minutes green, 2.5 minutes yellow, and 3 minutes red.
Thank you so much, Rupa. Let me call upon our grammarian. Our grammarian is Nishit. Nishit, can you explain your role?
Hi, hello. So as a grammarian, it's my responsibility to listen to all the speakers, take a note of any improper grammar use or word pronunciation, and also take a note of any outstanding words that you all use. And at the end of the, during our evaluation section, it will be my responsibility to just kind of give you an idea of what I thought was the correct grammar user, what I thought could be improved upon. So, and with that, I wanted to introduce word of the day. Word of the day is, if you can see, dubious. I can turn my camera off if you need me to, so you could see it. But dubious essentially means hesitating or doubting. So like facts could be dubious. You could have suspect. So that would be the word of the day. Like I said, it's on the background here. If anybody needs me to write the definition in chat, I'll do so in a minute. And back to you, Toastmaster Abhijit.
Thank you so much, Nishit. One thing I'll tell you, if you practice in Toastmasters, I promise you will not be dubious when you are facing the interview. Let's move on to our speaking section. Our keynote speaker today is Declan Shalvey. Declan has been in the industry for more than 30 years. He's currently a chief operating officer. He's also writing a book on impromptu speaking. Let me call upon Declan Shalvey. Prepare for that interview. Prepare for that interview, Declan Shalvey.
I chose the title, Prepare for That Interview, because an interview is essentially a gateway to perhaps a wonderful future for many of you. If not all of you, I certainly hope so. But before I talk about how to prepare for that interview, I suspect that many of you think I'm a dubious character at this group. And I want to tell you why I am here and perhaps why I might have something useful to say, although you can be the judge of that afterwards. I am an engineer by education and training, citizen of Ireland, graduated from Trinity College in Dublin. I am a chief operating officer in 2 companies, or have been the chief operating officer in 2 companies for the last 15 years. Prior to that, I was an SVP, senior vice president or vice president. I have lived and worked in Europe, in Asia, and I've spent 25 plus years in the US. Throughout that career, I have interviewed many times for jobs, and I have interviewed more people than I would care to admit. And what I'd like to do today is share with you what I believe is a successful path to securing a job that perhaps could be life-changing for you. There are simply 3 things I'm going to tell you here today. I'm going to ask you to do research first. I am going to tell you, of course, to prepare for the interview and give you some tips along those lines. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the interview itself and perhaps offer you some suggestions that you might consider. 3 things, easy to remember, at least for me. So let's talk about research first. Now, I think that it is critical for you as a potential employee to know as much as you can about the company or the organization that you hope to join. You need to do some research, find out everything you can about the company. NVIDIA, where Abhijit works, what is their strategy? What is their product? What do they offer? What industries are they in? What are they famous for? Information on public companies like NVIDIA, where Abhijit works, is freely available. But if the company is not public, there are still a raft of information sources that you can access. So find out as much as you can about the company. Don't just look at their website. Look at the industry they're in. Are they recognized for anything in particular? Is there anything that has been published that could be helpful and give you an insight? And here's where I suggest LinkedIn, one of the professional social media sites, has a lot to offer. When you do the public research on the websites or through Google or wherever, you'll hear a lot about the company. You hear about what they do and why they're successful. But if you can talk to a human being who has worked in that company before, they'll tell you something really important. They'll tell you what the culture is like on the inside. What is it like to work there? Does this company value the individual? Do they want people that are heroes, that can do extraordinary things? Or do they value people, perhaps that work well in teams? So look on LinkedIn. Try and find somebody that will talk to you about that company. And if they have left that company, they're more likely to share information that you cannot get public. I'm going to come back to this point a little bit later, but I want to emphasize, research the company, do a 360 on it to the maximum extent possible. Now, let's talk about preparing for the interview. One of the things that I have heard that is very dubious in my mind is that companies think that they can find an exact match for the job they're trying to fill. And many of the interviewers say that's exactly what we're looking for. I think that's flawed. It's dubious, because I can guarantee you within 6 months, something will have changed. Perhaps the internal organization has been realigned, personnel changes, or maybe there's an external factor around competition that causes that particular role to change. But nonetheless, study that job description. And I want you to do more than study it. I want you to internalize it. Try and think, what are they looking for really? What is it that would make somebody successful? What would success look like given that detailed job description? Go back to that notion of LinkedIn. If you can find somebody who has worked in that company before, or better still, in the department that you're thinking about joining, talk to them. What are they looking for? Are they looking for good team players? Are they looking for individual contributors? Are they looking for creative people that can innovate and work alone? Find out what you can, because then you'll be able to prepare more completely, I suggest, for that interview. Talk to as many people, and apart from the job description, try and imagine what success looks like. Now let's talk about the third element, which is the interview itself. These days, companies, particularly in the Bay Area and the West Coast of the US, less so on the East Coast of the US, and I'm not sure which geographies you're based in, they tend to be a little bit casual in their dress code. Please dress up for an interview. There is no penalty if you come in overdressed in a suit and tie or in the appropriate formal business attire for your gender. There may be a cost to you if you're too casual and you come across as too informal. So watch that. Be at least business casual, and you may have to step up. First impressions matter. First impressions matter. Now let's talk about the interview itself. I think you have to prepare and anticipate as many questions as you can. Don't assume they'll ask questions that bring out your best points. You have to think about those questions that you might be asked and how you can represent yourself to the best of your abilities. People will ask you situational questions. And let me give you an example of that. A situational question would be, hey, Abhishek, you're a program manager in your last company. When you're faced with a very difficult technical lead who isn't a good team player, what do you do about that? What have you done? How have you solved that problem in the past? How have you succeeded in the past? What they're asking you is, how have you behaved in a certain situation? And they will say, tell me, Abhishek, tell me a case where you failed to make a team successful. Because people want to see how you deal with adversity. Be ready for those type of questions, but always be ready to take that wonderful question that you're supposed to reveal how you failed, but present it in a better light. I like people who can see the silver lining in those questions and can articulate success and their own skills. So anticipate to the maximum extent possible the questions that you may be asked. Now let's talk a little bit about questions that you may be asked. In many cases, and I've seen this both ways, when I was interviewing or when I was being interviewed, perhaps I was not as clear asking the question of the candidate that I should be, and I've certainly seen that when I was being interviewed. Please do not assume you understand that question. Pause and say, I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what you're asking. Would you mind repeating it? Or what can also work well for you if you paraphrase that question back, because you're articulating to the interviewer that you're listening carefully, but you're not making assumptions about what that person wants to know. You're being very respectful of them. So clarify the question if you are not clear, because there is nothing worse than you talking for 3 or 4 minutes and the interviewer says, that's interesting, but that's not what I was asking you. That's not a good situation to be in. Even if you understand that question very, very clearly at the outset, I want you to do something that is fundamental in Toastmasters, a fundamental communication mechanism. And this fundamental communication mechanism has 0 words. It's called a pause. When you're asked a question in an interview, pause for 3, 4, or 5 seconds and use that time to think about the question, to organize your thoughts, and to express those coherently and clearly. Pause, think, organize, and express. I guarantee you, when I see that, I say, my goodness, this individual sitting in front of me, whether their skills match the job exactly or not, this person is a wonderful communicator. That's probably the essence of what I have to offer you. It goes without saying, so therefore I will say it. Be honest. Represent yourself correctly. Don't say that you have a skill or an experience if you do not. Rather, articulate how you go about acquiring that skill or how you have done so in the past. Do not misrepresent yourself, because interviewers sense that. They don't know specifically where you're not being truthful, but they sense that, and a very poor impression has been created. Be careful, be honest, be clear. Don't go over the exaggeration line. So in summary, future interviewers, really 3 things I want to leave you with this evening. Research the company to the maximum extent possible. Certainly get in touch with what they do, products, services, whatever their business is, how they're recognized in the marketplace, but try and go beyond that and make some determination of their culture. How do they do their business? How do they treat people? How do they fit with you? The second thing is prepare for that interview. Go through all the questions, go through the job description, exhaust yourself with anticipation of questions. Pause before you speak and organize your thoughts, and express yourself coherently. Do not ramble. And lastly, come prepared for the interview. Be as confident as you can be, because that's what I am looking for when I talk to people. I want people who know what they can do and who can contribute into this new situation that they do not know much about yet. Present yourself in the best light, be confident, be honest. This is my formula on both sides of the interview question for 40 years. I think it might just work for you. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Declan. I bet your experience for 40 years will definitely help us. There is actually one question from the audience. Vamshi, you had a question for Declan. You want to ask it now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hi, Declan. This is Vamshi here, Vamshi Krishna.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, fine. Yeah, I just want to know one thing. Before coming here and doing my masters, start doing my masters, I had to have a job in a bank in India. Okay, it is the organization name is Axis Bank, and I worked almost 5 years there. Okay, and now after I complete my masters, what means what help can it do in the interviews which I attend actually?
Would you repeat the last sentence? I'm trying to exercise my own advice here. Repeat that last sentence. I didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, I happen to have 5 years in banking, 5 years
Yes.
experience in banking, almost 5 years, and after my masters, if I go to an interview, okay, means if I tell them that I have means I used to work in the bank in Axis Bank, means it is an Indian bank, will it work? Means okay, will they take that into consideration and consider me as an experienced one, or should I start from step 1?
Absolutely. I think that you would bring some experience to the job, assuming that you're working in the banking industry, or you're looking for a job, or even if you're looking for a job in a different industry. Please don't underestimate the value of what you bring. You've worked for 5 years in Access Bank. You have done some things. Think of how so in preparing for representing your professional background, think about how you have made that organization better. Did you land a significant customer? Did you organize some systems within the bank? Did you put a process in place? Whatever you have done that was valued by your employer, bring that to the show, but be ready to be very clear on the value you added. You don't have much time to express that. Secondly, I would also recommend for somebody in the situation that you've represented yourself. You have a professional history behind you, and you have a master's. Yeah. Tell people why you invested in yourself by attending and graduating cum laude from a master's program. Yeah. Make sure they understand why you did that and why that has incremented your skills. I didn't mention my own master's program in industrial engineering. I regard education, if you do it properly, as condensed experience. You learn many things in a master's program that are applicable. So don't forget to articulate why you chose them. You want to invest in yourself and what you hope to achieve. And a combination of your prior experience and your master's experience, how can that come together and be a value add to the interviewer in front of you?
Okay. Thank you so much, Declan. We will come to more questions after the next speech. Our next speech is going to be by Kaushik. In this speech, Kaushik is going to be interviewed by me as if he is going for a job interview. This is his presentation mastery level 3, preparing for an interview project. Timer, can you please time each response for a minute, please? Kaushik, are you ready?
Yes.
My first question to you, Kaushik, can you tell me about yourself?
Sure. I'm currently doing my second master's, specializing in engineering management. So in my current semester, which is my second one, I'm focusing on advanced project management and business analytics courses. In my last semester, I worked here at ITU as a student assistant, where I was in charge for planning and promoting student government activities, and also in charge of student career hub events. Previously, I have an MBA in information systems, where I learned courses related to data science for business, project management, information technology, and cybersecurity. I did a couple of projects related to data science with Python and R, and also project management as well. So during my MBA, I successfully completed an internship as a product manager intern, where I helped a transportation company to improve their customized software to track their business operations on scale. I always wanted to build great products. I like solving problems and interacting with a lot of people. I believe that my diverse educational background and prior internship experience, I can continue this journey on becoming a successful product manager.
Thank you, Kaushik. What is the Ghost in Town project you are working on? What are the challenges did you face in that project?
Okay, the purpose of this Ghost in Town project was for me to create a project plan of any app. So my friend came up with this gaming application idea. So I took that idea and continued after that. So I actually researched how many developers would it take to complete it, how much time would it take, what would be the budget, and I created a roadmap and I put it all together in a detailed integrated project plan, and that's my project. That's why I named it as Ghost in Town. It's a Ghost in Town game.
How did you do that research? Where did you get your information from?
Okay, I spoke to my. I'm actually not an engineering background. I'm from a business background, but I spoke to my friends who are from engineering background, and I spoke to my uncle who is working as an engineering manager in First Republic Bank here. So I only spoke to them and decided, and I also used Google to come up with estimates, which are approximately not accurate. I don't think it is accurate, but approximately there. And that's how I got this.
Thank you, Kaushik. Kaushik, what do you perceive as your weakness?
Weakness. One thing I would say, focusing too much on details. So I'm like, every time I torture myself, you can say like that. Say if there's something wrong, or even if it looks good, I don't feel satisfied with how it is. So I keep readjusting and redoing it, and like putting too much pressure on myself. I think that is one. And one more is micromanaging. So I know people do their work, but I'm like, okay, it's micromanaging.
Thank you, Kaushik. Thank you so much. What did you learn from your internship, the stock price prediction model which you created? What did you learn from the internship for the stock price prediction model you created?
It's a project actually.
Okay.
So the main purpose of this project was to predict tomorrow's Amazon's closing stock price using the 90 days closing stock prices with Python and machine learning. I used a recurrent neural network called long short-term memory, short form for LSTM, to train and predict the output. LSTM is an artificial neural network where it is capable of catching data from past stages and using it for future predictions. And that is why it works well with time series data such as stock prices. So I scraped the data for the past 10 years data from Yahoo Finance website, and I divided it into train and test data sets. I trained the data sets over and over again to come up with a model which suits best for me. And the final model which I came up with was 86% accurate. It predicted the stock price 86% accurately 86% of the time. So the Python libraries I used in this project were Keras, scikit-learn, NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, and request library as well for scraping the data.
Thank you, Kaushik. My last question is for you. How do you handle the situation when you are pressed for time? How do you handle the situation when you are pressed for time?
Any situation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when somebody tells me something and they give me a deadline, if it is something which I can divide the work, I would divide it based on what I can do in short time, and then leave then the rest for which I have to do my own research. So if I can do it easily, then I would do it immediately, and then I would take time for more the rest of the things. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your answers with us. We'll now move on to the Q&A section with Declan. Bhupinder, you had a question for Declan. You want to ask it now?
Yes, thank you, Abhijit. Hi, Declan. This is Bhupinder. Yeah, I have a question. I was previously told by one of my professors, like it's good to interview the person who's interviewing you. So is it advisable we can ask any questions we want to from the person who is interviewing us?
Yes. And I do apologize, I should have mentioned that. You should also prepare a number of questions for the person in front of you in an interview.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to emphasize that you really have to do that carefully. If you're asking basic questions that reveal you have not done your homework, you have created a negative impression.
Okay.
Make sure that you're asking questions that are not perhaps freely available, or maybe they're very specifically oriented on the job, which of course would not be posted. But think deeply. It's an opportunity to make yourself differentiated. When somebody sits in front of me and they ask me a question that requires me as the interviewer to think, in other words, I haven't heard this question before, I am always impressed because it shows a different level of thought or analytical skill or perception that perhaps I wasn't aware from our earlier discussion. So yes, prepare some thoughtful questions. Don't ask basic stuff. But it's an opportunity to differentiate yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Declan? If there are no other questions, we'll move on to the next section of the meeting, which is impromptu speaking. Let me call upon our table topics master, Raghu. Raghu, it's all you.
Thank you very much, Abhijit. Welcome to another exciting session of Toastmaster meeting, which is impromptu speech section. This part of the meeting helps you to prepare for those moments where you need to on your toes and answer the questions. It can be critical or as simple as any question that your spouse or your friend poses on the spot. The questions are very simple and you need to answer at least for 1 minute, and the maximum time allocated is 2.5 minutes. Who's going next first? Okay, let me invite a Toastmaster before I start. Can I have Toastmaster Umesh? Umesh, do you want to go?
Yes.
Okay. What is on top of your bucket or wish list, and how do you plan to achieve it? What is on top of your bucket or wish list, and how do you plan to achieve it, Toastmaster Umesh?
How many of you have your own bucket list? Same way, I have my bucket list. First thing in my bucket list, and which is at the top, is to complete the project which I'm currently doing for setting up this process for online compressor, and whole process where I need to implement with my rich experience, which I have more than 16 years experience, to make sure that both the compressors, online compressor and booster compressor, Roto will complete before March. That was first thing in my bucket list. Second thing which is in my bucket list is the additional language learning. I'm trying to learn German, and because of some issues, I dropped that in between. But I wanted to do the certification till B1 level, and I had made a plan for completing that. And within 6 months, I will be certified as an A2 German level. These are the two most important things which I have on the bucket list. But last but not the least is I have a wonderful daughter, 4.5-year-old, my daughter Ovi, and she has some plans, and she wanted to visit outside Maharashtra. And because of pandemic, last 2 years we have not went to. So in month of May, I wanted to go for 1 week holiday with her to my hometown. That's all. And I know having so many lists in the having so many points in the bucket list and completing one by one and taking them done than that gives us a happiness. And which is always in my bucket list is I like to help people the way I can, which gives the happiness. So I always eager to help the way I can by giving my time, quality time, by giving my mentoring, by giving my skills. Over to you, Tabletop Master.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Umesh. I hope your bucket list gets knocked upon completely from top to bottom. Can I have Bhupinder next? Would you like to attempt?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. The question for you is, what habits would you like to change? Or rather, what is the single habit that you want to change in your life?
Thank you for the question. One habit I want to change is to become better in my time management skills, and to be more accountable for every hour I spend and how I spend it.
Continue. You need to speak for at least 1 minute. You can try it.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's important for me to become more efficient, and one way to do is to better be able to manage my time, so that I could prioritize my activities and finish my activities which are most important and not procrastinate, which helps me to be vigilant and be more proactive to the things I need to get done. And yeah, that's the most important thing I want to work on.
Thank you very much, Bhupinder.
Thank you.
Next, who wants to go? Eric, do you want to try?
You ask difficult questions. I'm kind
They're
of
very
scared.
simple. Okay. What do you enjoy doing the most? What drives you? What do you enjoy doing the most, and what drives you, Eric?
What drives me and I enjoy so much is playing with my son. When I arrive home and he's there, he want to play soccer with me there. He jumps in the bed and asks me for the ball to throw it. And I really enjoy that. Or just watching TV with him. That's something. He starts to laugh or sing with the songs. So we start to sing songs together. And right now he's 3 years old. So he starts to learn his first words. So it's exciting to see that. I really enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Eric. Pushpalata, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I can try.
What would you do if you could spend $1 million?
Oh.
What would you do if you could spend $1 million, Pushpalata?
Yeah, so if I will get $1 million, of course, that will be an amazing day in my life. Who don't want that, of course. First of all, I have few things in my bucket list where I would like to spend those money. The first foremost thing, I will buy a good home for myself and my kids in Bay Area, especially. And the second thing I would like to do is, I'm from the country or the region where I have seen a lot of poor people and poverty around me. So if I can do something better for their lives, especially construction of schools or anything which will create jobs for them, I would really appreciate to do those things and contribute something towards society with the help of those money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pushpalata. Life is all about learning. And I hope certainly that these two parts of the meeting, prepared speeches and the impromptu speech section, has helped you to improve yourself. Keep evolving, keep learning, keep growing in the life. May light shine upon you. With that note, let me pass the control to our Toastmaster today, DT Mapchi.
Thank you so much. Before we move on to the next section, let me check with Eric. Eric, is the ITU president in attendance? If so, should I introduce them?
Yes, he is here with us.
Jean Chan, would you like to?
Chan.
Yes. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to be with this group. And, you know, we've had Toastmaster branches operating out of ITU for many years. And unfortunately, we lost our leader. And as you all know, you really need a motivated local branch kind of leader to keep things really going. So even though we had a very vibrant group, we didn't really have that motivated person. So, but we're located in Santa Clara, and we're a high-tech graduate university at ITU. We follow the trends of the Silicon Valley, and that's how we teach. ITU has no tenure, unlike most universities, and so therefore 90% plus of our instructors, you know, of course, have PhDs in top universities, but they're practitioners. They like several of you, they've had you know, 20, 25 years of working experience at NVIDIA and SpaceX and Intel and Facebook and Google, whatnot. So the curriculum at ITU is led by our instructors. And so we're very happy because our goal, of course, is to see that our students do well in industry. And this is the exact perfect type of forum that they can participate in order to hone their skills. And we're very happy to be affiliated with you guys and to join in. And the stuff that you guys are sharing is wonderful. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our next section. In the next section, we are going to do evaluations. Let me call upon Declan Shalvey to evaluate Kaushik's interview. Declan, it's all you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to depart a little bit from the classical Toastmasters evaluation process to give Kaushik some specific feedback, but I hope it's also of value to the listeners on this call. You were asked 6 questions. 2 of them you gave wonderful answers to. There was one that went both ways. I feel positive and negative about it, Kaushik. And then there were 3 that I suggest could be improved, and we're going to talk about that. So let's start with what I liked. I loved the way you answered the question about the challenges you faced when you talked about the gaming application. Let me tell you what I heard. You said, I did the research, I identified the number of developers, I estimated the time for the program, I created a budget, I created a roadmap, and then I did a detailed plan. If I could get an answer like that from some of the engineers that I worked with for 20 years, I would be happy. Wonderful answer. I also liked when you talked about the predictive model. It was a very technical subject, but I was able to understand what you were doing and what you were saying. And again, you finished it with a very strong comment about an 86% accuracy. So very confidently delivered. The question that I'm iffy about and that I want you to think about is the very first question when you were asked to say something. Tell me about yourself. Now, first of all, Kaushik, you are the world's leading expert on yourself. There is nobody on the planet that knows more about you than you. So this is your time to shine. But what you did was, instead of starting out by saying, answering the question that you were asked about yourself, you described that you were doing a second master's, advanced program management, your student government, you have a previous MBA. But then you finished up with statements that are impressive to me. I always like solving problems. You could say I'm an analytical and expand upon that. You also said, I like to work with people. Put that first. Put your best foot forward. Answer the question, tell them what you want to, what really you want them to hear about. You're detailed, you're analytical, you're a problem solver, and you can work with a diverse group of people and then give them some examples of that. So just turn that around. The areas that I think that I really want you to think about are as follows. Abhijit asked you, how did you do the research? And what you started out with was an apology. Oh, don't ask me that question. I'm not an engineer. I'm something else. Do not start out with an apology and denigrate yourself. And I'm going to go a little bit beyond the red because this is such an important point. Immediately go to the solution you offer. I spoke to my friends, I networked, I talked to people who knew something about this, I gathered information, I coalesced the information. But don't leave them with that initial negative impression because that's memorable to me, okay? A classic case and question that you'll all be faced with at some stage, if not at every interview, is tell me your weaknesses, none of us is perfect. And you said, well, you know, I'm so much into the details. I readjust my plans. I do that too much, or maybe too much of a perfectionist, and I micromanage. Here is the way. Here's the principle that is important for you to understand when you're asked a question like this. The principle is that you take your weaknesses and you are honest about it, and you turn them into something that's positive. Here's what I mean by that. I am I spend a lot of time on the details, and to be candid with you, I am a stickler for detail, and I tend to adjust and change things. But let me tell you, that's a fault I think I have, but I recognize it, and here's what I'm doing about it. I'm trying to do A, B, and C. I'm getting feedback from my boss, and I'm trying to make that problem go away. So you've taken a negative and you're telling a positive story that you can adjust to inputs and that you can acquire different skills or bridge those negatives. That's key. Show that you recognize a weakness, but change it to something else. And lastly, how should you handle a situation where you're pressed for time? The answer that you need to provide when we're all pressed for time with all of those tasks is that I can prioritize. I can decide what's important. I'm going to put that on first, and I'm going to get that done. So I may not get all the details done when I'm pressed for time, and I will engage others, but I assure you, I know what's important, and I get to it first. And you again leave a very positive impression. Your demeanor was quite good during the interview, but once or twice you didn't appear that confident. So practice, practice, practice. Thank you for your attention, Kaushik. Great job.
Thank you, Declan. Thank you so much for that wonderful feedback. I myself learned a lot from that. So I really appreciate that.
I do apologize, Abhijit, for going over time. I did it totally deliberately because that young man did a great job and I want to help him if I can.
I really admired each and every second of that, so don't worry about it. Let me call upon our grammarian to share the grammarian's report. Nishit?
Thank you, Abhijit. First of all, I'd like to say great meeting today. Everyone did a great job with their speeches, with their questions, table topics. I don't have a whole lot of grammar issues that I saw. So what I'll be discussing is how to be more concise for a few people. And yeah, so let's get started. Word of the day was dubious. I only heard 2 people use it, Abhijit and Declan. I apologize if somebody else used it and I did not catch it, but the point of having word of the day is, you try to incorporate in your speech. So keep trying for that. I want to see that number go up and up as we go along. And but thank you for you 2 that used it. Okay, so let me start with Declan and his speech. Great speech, great information in that speech. I myself can use a lot of it as well. I didn't see any grammar issues, being completely honest. Some of the interesting words I saw you use that can help everyone is paraphrase, articulate, and coherent. Those are the words that, at least in my vocabulary, doesn't come up every day, but those are really good and really impactful word to use. So there's one thing I caught. You said future interviewers instead of interviewees. That's the only thing I caught that could have been a quick mistake. But other than that, great use of grammar. I didn't see any issues with it. Then going to Kaushik and his interview speech, couple of things. Again, it's mostly about being concise, making sure you're not using a lot of filler words. You mentioned that you had an internship as a product management intern. That's kind of you don't need to say intern twice. You can just say I interned as a product management manager at this company, wherever that may be, or so just reduce the redundant words. And that's ironic because I said reduce the redundant words. So I'm learning too. The other thing you said, you're from an engineering background, and when you mentioned it about your friends that they're from an engineering background, I would use, instead of that, I would use I don't have an engineering background, or they don't have they do have an engineering background. From usually means a location. You're not talking about a location, so just a quick correction there. Then on your weakness, you said you focus too much on details. I would just call it just an advice. I don't know, you can just call it perfectionist. I think it has a little less of a negative connotation, and you can, like Declan mentioned, you can probably use that as something that you're working towards in a positive. So that's all I have. Umesh, on your table topics, you mentioned additional language learning. Instead of that, I'd use my other bucket list item is to learn another language. Again, just semantics. I don't have any other things on here. So thank you everyone for participating today, and back to you, Vijay.
Thank you so much, Nishit. Let me call upon our timer, Rupa, to share the timer's report. Rupa?
Yeah, thank you. It was a wonderful session today. I think we did have lot of things packed in, but still on time. So I'll start with Declan's keynote speech. So it was 10 to the time allotted time was 10 to 15 minutes, and he did it did get completed on time, 14 minutes and 51 seconds. And Kaushik's interview, that was like 6 questions. So almost all of the questions were within the time frame. So I did see like 32 seconds, 42 seconds and all. So there were 2 questions which he went over time, 1 minute 15 seconds and 1 minute 10 seconds. But overall, it did end in less than 5 minutes. And evaluations, obviously, like Declan's most valuable evaluation, but I still timed it. So it was 5 minutes and 50 seconds. And then coming to the table topics, Umesh was 2 minutes 11 seconds, Bhupinder 52 seconds, Eric 41 seconds, and Pushpalata 48 seconds.
Thank you so much, Rupa. Thank you so much for the concise report. This actually ends our meeting, but before we end our meeting, I want to get feedback from everyone. Yavjin Chan, how was your experience for the meeting today?
Oh, I think really good. I think these kinds of exercises are like one of your key members said, practice, practice, practice is everything. The more I see that people are used to talking, it comes out easier. Just that easy or that simple of a principle. And I think also that you work on grammar and cut down on redundancy. I think there's a guy named Wes. He's an Apple guru guy. I forget his name, but he will talk about giving PowerPoint presentations and how there's like a 10, 20, 30 rule. Never have more than 10 slides, 20 minutes, and 30, whatever it is. So, but to say less is to say more. So I think that's a really good thing, and that you guys time it to be not aware of how precious time is also good. So with that, I'm going to cut off my time. So thank you very much for having us join. It's an honor and a privilege.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Rekha, how was your experience, Rekha?
This is really wonderful, Abhijit. I loved it, actually. This is the first time I'm attending. And last week only I came to know about Toastmaster. It's the first time for everything. Even I was reading on the online. I went through some videos in online too. It is really great. Like, it would be a future helping for everyone. It is not only for interview or anything, maybe for taking the meetings. And that's what actually I'm looking for, how to take a meeting, because I'll be attending all the meetings, but at the end of the day, I start stammering because attending for 10 meetings at the end of the day, and with the pressure we have it, and we have to be on the topic on the spot. So that's interviews or whatever it's going on here, it was like really fetching. And the words, the keynotes, like words are important here. That's what I'm like trying to learn here. Thank you for offering this options. And it's for Rupa who gave me this link. And of course, Raghu gave me also the link. So thanks everyone.
Great to have you, Rekha. Bhupinder, how was your experience?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think everybody got valuable evaluation, which could help us also for our future interviews. So I'm glad I was here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhupinder. Pushpalata, how was your experience?
Yeah, so I had heard about Toastmasters from beginning of the course at ITU, and I really had never chance to listen and attend these sessions. Today is my first time to attend it, and I'm really glad that I'm too late here. And it was amazing experience to listen, especially the evaluator. His experience was wonderful, and I enjoyed it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Pushpalata. Eric, how was your experience?
I'm very happy. I'm delighted. I didn't imagine all the structure that is inside and how much you can learn. I like every step since the beginning. We have this word and then let's use it. I was not aware of that. I was dubious. But now I'm clear how to proceed with the first step. And then all the structure, it's amazing. I'm happy. And I'm so happy also that our students are having this opportunity as well.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. One thing I want to tell you, in this club, we offer mentorship to each and every member. For me, mentors have helped me a lot. Like Declan has helped me a lot to become who I am today as a speaker, as a leader. So remember, when you join Toastmasters, it's not just the pathways. There are like 11 kinds of pathways which you can explore, like presentation mastery, leadership, or even humor. There are different pathways you can choose from. And so you are given, there are total more than 69 projects which you can work towards. It really helps you to build your skills. The main thing is experiential learning and feedback. We get so much of feedback. That feedback helps us to improve every week. In 2020, I got a chance to meet with the world champion, Darren LaCroix. And I told him, I don't want to participate in a speech contest which is going to come. One thing he said would change my life forever. He said, always go for more stage time, more stage time, more stage time. And from that time onwards, I've taken full advantage of pandemic and given over 250 speeches. So this is the place where you can learn. People will support you. I think my life has changed because of this, and I want to introduce you to Toastmasters. We meet every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. If you have any questions, please stay along. Otherwise, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. It's so good to have you. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Good night.